It's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Clark Howard Show, where our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. Now, recently on the show, I talked about how appealing auto insurance claims can lead to big savings. Well, do you know the same, maybe even more true with health insurance? And I'm going to give you a great example. Also, do you want to live in a mandatory homeowners association or don't you? It's a 50-50 kind of choice in the United States. And I want to tell you the pluses and minuses. And I'm going to start off with one that just drives me crazy. A ridiculous action by a homeowners association that I can't wait to share with you later in this podcast. So, insurance claims that you submit or that your medical provider submits for reimbursement from health insurance, which, by the way, in the United States, we have the largest percent of Americans insured that we've probably ever had in the modern history of the United States. Overwhelmingly, people do have health insurance now, but having it isn't the same as getting the money reimbursed because insurers are playing tough. One estimate I saw is that 1 in 7 claims are denied. Another I saw said 1 in 4. And 1 in 4 is probably an exaggeration. But clearly it's a big problem as someone who has unfortunately used too much medical care in the last few years. I have received a lot of these denials myself. So it is a big problem. But there are now tools available where you don't have to just take it. Now, according to Kaiser Family Foundation, they now go by KFF, their research is that only 0.1% of insurance company denials are ever appealed. So the insurers have an enormous marketplace benefit to turn down legit claims because 99.9% of the time people say, oh, well, I can't fight the big bad insurer. I'm just going to pay the money, even though I had coverage for it. You don't do that. You stand up for yourself and your rights. We're talking big money here. Well, there was a story in the San Francisco Standard, a newspaper I'm not familiar with, about a tech worker in San Francisco named Holden, and I won't pronounce the last name right. I'm going to give you a shot at it, Christa. Caro? K-A-R-A-U. Caro. That would be Caro. And she has had a fair amount of medical issues, had an accident, and she had a lot of denials on her coverage. And she had 40 denials from her care. She appealed all these 40 denials. What percent did she win of her appeals? 5%? 10%? 20%? How about 90%? 90%. Now, an insurer could, in good faith, deny something because they're missing supporting documents. An insurer could be acting in bad faith and just deny because it's a way for them to pay out less money to make more money. You don't know what it is, which it is. But she fought and got her money 90% of the time. Now, you got to be really, really organized. And people can be intimidated by the process of appeals. So remember, I said she works in tech. What did she do? She came up with a website you can go to when you have a claim that is declined and you don't know exactly how to handle the appeal. And she's developed these tools for you to use that are free. If you want to donate anything, you can donate money to fund it. But you go there and you click on Generate Appeal. And she uses AI in order to take the denial and know the proper medical terminology and lingo and all that to do an appeal. And the website, simply enough, is called, I love it, fighthealthinsurance.com. Fighthealthinsurance.com. As to how well her templates will do for you, don't know. But I hope the overall message you get, even if you don't use her tools or you find they're useless for you, whatever it is, I want you to know the important thing. 0.1% of people ever appeal a denial, and it's your money? It's your money? Don't just take it. Don't be a sheep. Why do we always denigrate sheep?
Oh, poor sheep.
Yeah, poor sheep. Anyway, fight for your rights and get that money you are entitled to. Stand up to the big impersonal insurance company, period.
Speaking of such,
Yes.
Claire in Georgia wrote in, I had a routine ultrasound done. The read showed a suspicious mass present. I was referred to a surgeon to follow up. At the surgeon's office, a repeat ultrasound showed no mass. The surgeon pulled up the prior ultrasound images and said that the initial ultrasound tech had mislabeled all of the images, and the mass noted was actually a healthy lymph node in an entirely different area. So no surgery needed, yay. My frustration is that I don't feel I should have to pay for the initial scan that was done incorrectly. It caused a ton of anxiety, unnecessary follow-up, and more money spent seeing a surgeon and having another scan. I cannot get in touch with anyone at the outpatient facility where the first scan was done. It is affiliated with a large hospital system. I've called customer service and emailed the customer service address. The bill is $300, not huge, but the principle of the matter makes me want to object. What do I do?
Oh, man. Claire, this does happen where there will be medical error. The great news is this medical error was much to your favor. The anxiety it caused and all that, it's terrible. The extra expense, crazy. Peace of mind you now have, wonderful. And thank goodness it wasn't the other way, that something was mislabeled and something was missed, and you're now fighting for your life. But you're completely right. And the problem in these big hospital systems is no accountability. The hospital system, like most, almost certainly is a nonprofit. They will have an office, a patient advocate, or a hospital social worker. You find out who that individual is at the hospital system, and you hold them accountable. And if you still don't get any satisfaction, find out in your state legislature who's the chair of either the House or the Senate committee that oversees hospitals in your state legislature. And you contact them and you tell them the problem you're having with that hospital. If they then make an inquiry, hospitals have a lot of factors that they have to deal with the legislature, spend a lot of money lobbying people and all that. You start pushing that lever, though, you will get an apology and you'll pretty quickly get your money back.
What about her insurance company? If they paid, would they advocate?
They should receive their share back.
But they're not going to help advocate.
They're not going to advocate.
Teresa wrote in and said, how do I protect my adult disabled son's identity and credit?
So this is a great question, Teresa, that is, as I discovered in the past, is a problem for families of disabled children, if the children are adults. If your disabled son was a minor, there's a clear, simple process to freeze your child's credit and identity with the three bureaus. On the other hand, with an adult child, it is a more complicated thing because you could certainly pretty easily, go onto the websites of the three bureaus on their credit freeze section and attempt to credit freeze. You're going to have your son's social. You're going to have all the key information. But what you're going to find is you're going to find a no file, likely, because your son has probably never had credit. So then you have to go through the process pretty much like you would with a minor child, and you're going to have to deal with the bureaucracy at the credit bureaus for child identity freezes, child credit freezes.
What if she has power of attorney? She probably has power of attorney.
No, she will have power of attorney. And you're going to have to deal with them with this being a pretty rare thing, and you're going to have to push. Because the first time you might be declined, and then you're going to have to push again to get it resolved. But you will be able to get it done, and it's a smart thing to do.
This came in from Chris on Instagram. Is it true that if you have a family member buried on your property, it's considered a cemetery and you never have to pay taxes on it? Also, that it can never be foreclosed on?
This is one of those social media rumors that is absolutely not true. It has spread around on social media.
And message boards.
Yeah, it's not valid. A cemetery, in order to qualify for favorable tax treatment or tax-free treatment, has to be exclusively used and licensed as a cemetery. And this thing that's been floating around on the internet just is not true at all. So I know there are people who aren't paying their property taxes thinking, hey, nobody can ever do anything to me. And that's not true either. So don't buy into that false rumor that is on social media. And Christa said message boards. People still use message boards? Or what do they call those
Reddit
now?
and Quora, all those, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Forums.
Thank you.
We have forums at Clark.com.
Our
community.
That's
Join
right.
Join it and check it out.
We were really early on that, too. We did that forever ago originally. Anyway, straight ahead. Speaking of homes, I want to talk about HOAs, homeowners associations, the good, the bad. But I'm going to start with the ugly straight ahead. So you got about a 50-50 chance when you go out and look for a home today that you'll end up in one that has a mandatory homeowners association. And mandatory homeowners associations have been a topic on our podcast and prior when I did a syndicated radio show going back decades. And people usually aren't contacting me because they're happy with their homeowner association. Something's happened that they got a beef about. And I want to share a story recently that has been reported all over the country. So I will give the short version in case you've already heard it. But a guy named David Martin lives in Goodyear, which is a suburb of Phoenix, west, just south of the stadium, football stadium a little bit. And he was really worried about the danger with the extreme heat that Phoenix has had, where temperatures in the metro area stayed above 100 for 100 and something days this year in a row. And so he left for delivery drivers and other people working in his community, left a cooler with cold water for people to keep them hydrated, to keep them out of danger. So now the Homeowners Association has issued repeated fines, and the fines are increasing, saying that it is a violation of the association rules to hand out free water and have that cooler there. He's refusing to pay, and this has now become a big national story. So who knows what's eventually going to happen. And as often the case, the management company, which I am actually very familiar with, First Service Residential, sent one of those notes that is cold as could be about finding him, bad pun, with the cold water. And this is an extreme case, but when you choose to live in a mandatory homeowners association, they make the rules. And the rules can be extremely arbitrary. They just have to be enforced equally. And there are people who love this so that there's conformity and uniformity. I mean, you're not going to have, the issue that you have back east where the lawn has to be exactly this and has to be cut exactly right, the right level of inches and all that. And, but you will have, because in Arizona you're going to have desert scape principally, although some areas of Phoenix still have traditional lawns. But you're going to have rules about what color paint you can use and if you have a fence, how it's done. And I mean, there's a rule for a rule. I mean, there's rules for everything. And it does help potentially in homeowner values, because if you live in a house outside of a homeowner community and somebody puts a vehicle up on blocks in the front yard, or they haven't cut the lawn in who knows how long, there is no homeowner association doing anything about it. And even if it violates local ordinances, rules, or laws, it's hard to get the county or city to come and do anything about it. And then you're trying to sell your home and you're across from that. What's that going to do to your home value? So this is not an all great and all terrible kind of choice. You just got to know if you really want your freedom and your privacy, you don't want to be in a mandatory homeowners association community. Just simple as could be. And I mean, obviously the inhumanity of this board and saying that you can't have cold water there for people in temperatures exceeding 100 degrees. He's just giving this water away to keep people safe.
Crazy.
I mean, obviously, huh?
Crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, it's mean-spirited and inhumane, but it is almost certainly the right of that homeowners association to do it, and that's what you face when you live in a mandatory homeowners association community.
All right, we'll go to some questions. Rebecca in Georgia wrote in with this. I've been religiously Zillowing for years now, and I'm finally ready to take the leap into starting to actually start the home buying process as a first-time buyer. I've gotten a couple of realtors' names from friends in the area, but my question is, how do you know which realtor to go with? What are some things to look out for and ask in order to decide who to use? Similarly, how do you choose a good home inspector? As this is the biggest financial decision of my life, I'm really worried about ensuring I'm putting my money in a good investment rather than a financial nightmare.
All right, so first of all, Rebecca, congratulations. You're ready to do so. Your timing's better because of what's happened with mortgage rates, so good for you. Hiring a buyer's agent is an art, not a science. The way I try to make it more science than art is usually the way you have found names just from friends saying, oh, I use so-and-so, they were great. That's not bad. But I'd like for you to lay something over on that. I want you to drive around the neighborhoods that you're interested in buying and see whose names you see repeatedly on the for sale signs. Because agents tend to do, if they're high volume agents, they farm an area, meaning that is their area of expertise. They have bought or they represented buyers or sellers on so many of the homes in the area. Those are the people you want because they know, oh, that building plan, man, that building plan's had a lot of problems with the foundation on that side, or the roof has not been really properly structurally done on that building plan over there. I mean, the kind of things that an agent that farms an area learns over time are so immensely valuable to you. And so you want to interview a buyer's agent. You see those signs, those are going to be listing agents, people selling. But again, they also are involved representing buyers a lot, and they know the neighborhoods. You want those to interview those usually two or three agents that heavily handle that area you're looking. You don't want somebody who you get to represent you who doesn't live in that part of town, doesn't know that part of town. They're not going to know fair market value. They're not going to know the history. They're not going to be able to well represent you. So you want somebody who knows the area you're going, and you interview them.
And then home inspector.
Oh, the home inspector. Thank you. This is so typical me.
It's okay.
That just went right on my head. So over the years, I had one particular home inspector that I knew and trusted, and I hired regularly. He's now retired, and I'm more a seller of real estate now than a buyer, so I don't have that relationship anymore. But if you ask agents for recommendations, you want to interview those people, find out their expertise. And if you're buying an older home, you want to hire somebody who is an engineer or has an engineering background, because one of the things you're really looking for with an older home is that it's structurally sound. You want somebody who's really, really picky. What I used to call a deal killer inspector, and agents have repeatedly taken offense to that term. But
I would tell the agent that too. You know, I really want someone who you've seen be very picky.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want. You don't want somebody who gives you buyer's assurance. Oh yeah, this is going to be great. Oh man, can you imagine sitting out on that deck?
Wish I was buying it.
Yeah, that's not what you want. You want somebody who's really going to be that gripey kind of person. Well, I don't know if I like that right there.
All right. Reese in Georgia says, my siblings and I are looking into doing a trust versus a will for my mom and for us individually. Can you recommend how to get started? Is there an affordable lawyer or organization you can recommend we consult?
Okay, so this area of the law is more expensive, and you have to have good reasons why you want to do a trust instead of a will. A lot of people think they need a trust because they're so heavily marketed a lot online, but trusts are needed in not as commonly as you think. You've got to have a specific family reason, financial reason, something like that you start looking at trusts. But if you are going to end up needing trust arrangements, you want to hire a lawyer who specializes in wills, estates, and trusts. Now, as a practical matter, most lawyers that are experts in this field work for big, more expensive firms because it tends to be wealthier people that are going to a lawyer who does specialized trusts. If you're not sitting in a situation with enormous assets, what you want is somebody who worked at one of the big firms, working in wills, estates, and trusts, but is now out on his or her own in either an individual practice as a sole practitioner lawyer or in a small office, because the hourly rate will be much, much lower. So when you feel the need for a specialty kind of estate practice, you don't go to any old lawyer. It needs to be someone who that is their expertise. So it's going to take some digging to find that person. I don't have a simple clearinghouse site to go to that I could recommend.
Miguel in Utah says, when doing a rollover from an old 401k to IRA, or when changing investment providers within my 403b, there will be 4 to 10 days when my money is out of the market. How do I time this maneuver to not lose money? Normally, I don't try to time the market for anything, and Wes Moss said to always stay in, because if you miss a good day, it has a big effect on the final amount at retirement.
Okay, so what Wes is talking about, Miguel, is where people try to time the market going in, going out. And by the time people who got scared, get out, decide to go back in, they've missed potentially big run-ups in the market. Because after markets have been through a decline, when they start to come out of that, big gains tend to happen early in that process. And people will start hearing the news. Wow, the Dow did this today, or the S&P did that today. But by the time they get around to putting money back in, they've missed those key days of big upward movements that Wes talks about. In your case, you're not trying to time the market. You're trying to move your money. And in that case, you can't freak about 4 to 10 days. You just take the money out when it works in your life, and then it's back in less than a week or 10 days. And you can't fret about those movements in the market. It's just not a good idea. I recently had to sell some investments, and I'd just seen a few bad trading days before it, and then there were some good trading days after I sold. And I could have done that, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Wow, if I'd sold just a few days earlier, or a few days later, whatever, after, whatever. You can always freak yourself out about that, but investing is a long game, and staying in slow and steady through ups and downs is very important. If you get unlucky that there was a big movement up that you missed in those 4 days, you were just unlucky. There is no way to effectively time that. We're out of time for today's podcast, but I want to tell you we have an unusual special edition of our podcast tomorrow. I'm doing an interview with a gentleman named Jonathan Clements, who is considered to be the premier personal finance writer in the United States, who revealed a while back that he has terminal lung cancer. And he has been writing about his journey as he sees the end of his life. Doesn't know exactly when it's going to be, but he knows it's coming because his cancer is incurable. And he has a lot of wonderful things that I know he'll share with us tomorrow. I've known Jonathan a long time. He's a brilliant man and a good man. And I know it's odd to say, I'm sure you will enjoy listening to Jonathan talk about the path he's on, facing imminent death. I promise you, he is such a positive, upbeat guy. You will not want to miss the lessons he'll have for you, I'm sure, tomorrow. Hope you have a great day. Remember what we're all about. You learning ways to save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. And I'll see you tomorrow with Jonathan.